Alright, so at this time, it's kind of I'm a fan of board games, and I get around to many different game companies' products. Unfortunately, it seems that I do a lot of these little AEG products, but there's a lot to be said about that. AEG is a great game company, and they make a lot of good products, especially these ones that come in nice little small boxes that are excellent little card games to pick up and play with friends. They make really good coffee night games, as I call them, and really and truly, there's a lot of value to that. Now I'm going to talk about a dexterity game. This one's called Maximum Throwdown, and of course by AEG. This one's an interesting one. I actually got the original version of it after I got the expansion version that came in the AEG black box for 2014. The black box had something called Maximum Throwdown Overdrive, which gave you or Overload, sorry, which gave you 6 more factions for this game to play with, as well as a few new mechanics. So when I'm going to go through this review, I'm going to kind of break down one expansion versus another, tell you some of the things that are going on in this game, and then kind of break it down on how I feel about that at the end. So we're going to go right into the components right now and take you inside the box. Okay, so what I've done here is I've kind of pulled out all of the Maximum Throwdown from the base game over here and the Overload over here. Surprisingly, it does all fit in this little box if you remove the insert and ignore the fact that the tokens from the expansion don't really fit in the box. But that's, just one of those little semantic things. This did not come with a box. Obviously, it came in the AEG Friday Black box, so if you have other storage solutions, I would definitely like to hear them. I'm considering just getting a big deck box for this game someday, but I've sat down and I banded all the factions together. So, really and truly, these decks are kind of asymmetrical for each of the factions slightly, but you're just going to see a lot of similarities with them. I'm just going to throw an example up here of the aliens. Every card group will have a faction card and some sort of base card maybe associated with it. These are kind of generic. You don't exactly need to have these correspond with the proper group, but I like to. Then you have a number of these cards with symbols on them that represent the various point scoring mechanics, as well as the action icons that happen if they happen to be face up on your next turn after throwing. So for example here, we've got 6 pips here showing, which means that if this card was to score uncovered, it would score 1 point. If any of these symbols ever becomes covered by another card, which is the primary mechanic of you literally throwing these cards down on top of each other and trying to score as many points as possible by the end of the game. That's what it's for, man. This game did not come with any sort of thing to write down the point values, though, so you're going to have to either find a way to write these down or figure it out as the game progresses. And since points are scored every round instead of at the end, things are kind of hectic there. But basically, every card's just going to have a number of these bits of iconography on them. About 20 cards per faction. Some of them will look similar to each other, of course. The whole idea being that, there's a number of these bases on the table based on the number of players. I throw down a card from some agreed upon distance and height, and then another person will throw his card down, and we keep going back and forth and covering symbols, and whatever's on top will actually come into effect. So that's what that little reference card is for, is to keep track of all of the symbols as you score points and use abilities. Eventually, people are going to run out of cards, or no, that's how the game ends, actually. You will actually run out of cards, and that's how the game will end. Each player will then total up their points that they scored every round, and whoever has the highest will win. Now, in the base game, all the bases are the same. A lot of the cards, again, have some asymmetry, but not much. They all have this kind of swirly, explodey pattern in the background, so that way you can tell that they're from this set. They have a corresponding color, no sort of, key other than the back where they come from, but that's fine if you're not colorblind. Component wise, that's kind of get a little ding that I'm not going to probably hit on too badly, because if you can't keep track of your own cards or have somebody else help you with that, it's going to be kind of a pain. But like, see, this is kind of red, another one's kind of greenish, so there's definitely areas for that to be improved on. Or if they had like little etching on the side of it to give you like a number or something to correspond with this, it would help out a lot more. Now they kind of fixed that in the expansion for the game, not by much though. So we're gonna pull out like the Cthulhu set here. The Cthulhu set is all green, but it's got like a swirl instead. But it's also got some new iconography. Not surprisingly, with the expansion, they added a few new abilities for these cards. Ultimately, though, they do kind of line up with the abilities of the other cards and kind of, balance themselves. For example, one of the new things that they introduced was this little defensive symbol and this bomb. The bomb is not necessarily the best thing, but the shield is pretty good. But you also have these things called negative pip markers, which actually detract from the pips that are showing on your card. Another neat thing that they did was they actually added another side to the card, which represents a whole nother value to it. This means that if any cards are out here with this and you are utilizing this either as a home base or as just a general thing that everybody has access to, this symbol will come into effect through gameplay. That was kind of an interesting asymmetrical part they added to the game that I really enjoyed. The expansion itself also came with a number of these little tokens here that represent little power tokens that allow you to do more actions on your turn by putting these out on there and increasing their point value, essentially. But these little tokens can be covered up or bumped or tossed aside by waylay cards, and they could slip onto other cards and help somebody else instead, or get covered up and get nullified. So there's a lot of strategy on how you put these on here. Thankfully, you don't have to like flick these or do anything. You just actually put it on the card, and as long as it's out, it'll be in effect. But if it gets partially covered at all, as with any of the other icons, then it'll be nullified. So bringing that up, usually what you're going to do with the two sets here is you're going to go through the rulebook. I prefer the expansion rulebook because it's a bifold instead of a whole sheet list, which I hate these so much. But it's not bad size. You're going to have like a recommended setup. Everyone's going to take a deck based on number of players, and you're going to just throw cards until somebody runs out. Every turn you're going to be scoring points based on a number of pips showing. And really and truly, I say at the end of the turn, but it's actually the beginning of your turn, so that's kind of one of the interesting mechanics of this, is when you throw down cards, it's not going to always be there when the other players throw their cards. So that's why you do this kind of step-by-step order track where you're going to be evaluating how many points you have and what other actions you have. And then you can do your whole stealing or attacking or breaking, as it's called, which we'll kind of get into a bit after I explain this. And then you're going to end up just drawing your card and then throwing as number of cards as you can. So getting down to the various icons here. In the base sets, has its icons, but they're also shared on the expansion, and they may have actually taken away a few here. I'm sorry about this, but it seems that some of these factions, yes, actually the reference cards are faction based in the expansion, so you're gonna have to keep an eye out for that as well. So you will actually not have icons in the expansion that you will have amongst maybe all the cards in the original game, so that kind of gives you a bit more asymmetry there. So we're going to go through a base set here. So the draw action is a little cross there. Every time that you have that symbol out there, you can actually draw more cards, which is great because it allows you to have more variety of what you're choosing to throw that turn. You actually have a hand that you have on top side of your deck and a discard pile as well. You're just going to keep those maybe at the side of the table or in your pocket or something, however you choose to utilize that. You've got a throw action here, which gives you extra throws if you happen to have extra cards. Optionally, you can use these to actually rethrow cards that don't touch a base and therefore are not a valid card placement for the turn. That's one of the big points of contention where if it doesn't land on a base card, it's not active. It has to be touching any other card that's already out in the game. It doesn't have to just touch a base. But in the first part of the game there, since only the bases are out, it can be a bit of a crapshoot who gets the first card out. Even if it's upside down, the card is still legal. It just has no bearing on the game whatsoever as far as points or abilities. So keep that in mind when you're throwing cards around. Break is kind of a little thing that goes with toss here. If you throw a card and it breaks, or you choose to break it, that means it can actually exist outside of the bases or on top of any cards, therefore expanding the game area. So that's actually a really cool option there. If you get a few of these out, you can just start throwing cards places and have other people have to throw stuff at them to try and nullify them. Steal here lets you steal cards from another person's deck. And then you also get to throw it as well, which you can use this to throw upside down cards or hopefully, junk their cards so that way they lose points overall in the end of the game. Attacking forces you or allows you to hit somebody's deck and makes them discard a card. That means they also have less cards to play with. And then finally, you got the pip cards. For every 6 pips on the board, you're going to score a point. If you have 6 and 5, then you're still only going to score 1 point. So it's really important that you keep as many of these uncovered as possible. And I believe that if even part of the icon is covered up, none of the pips will matter for points for scoring. So it's really important to realize that when you play for your number of games here. In the expansion here, for like example, Cthulhu's fashion has a bomb, enchantment, resurrect, and shield. It doesn't have any of like these other actions. But what happens is each of these things kind of gives you the nifty little expansion things. Revive allows you to take cards from your discard pile and throw them. Shield allows you to draw 1 card from your opponent's deck and actually place it into your own deck as a way to keep people from discarding your own cards when they attack you. Enchantment allows you to place those little tokens out, which double the point value of any cards that are out on the field for the pips. Then you also have this bomb. Whenever there are 3 bombs in play, even from you or another player, they will explode and you will actually end up removing well, alright, if they're connected, I should say, yeah. You receive 1 point per bomb icon and you remove all non-location cards. It basically is a reset of the game board as you blow up all the cards, but you get points for each of the bomb cards that are blown up, basically. That's a pretty cool mechanic. Really and truly not much has changed other than the Cthulhu faction. Nobody else really has that many extra abilities. As you'll see, like the Cowboys here have a mostly similar abilities except for this one, which is the only other ability not covered in this expansion example from Cthulhu. Target actually allows you to call out a card and shoot it with one of your cards, and if you hit it, you gain a point. That's all it is. It's just a trick shot. That's one of those pretty cool little added features to the game expansion that came with the Black Friday box. So we're going to really have to wrap things up here because I know this is going on a little long for a dexterity game, but it's definitely an enjoyable experience. But we're going to take you kind of right in the final thoughts here and tell you what I think about both of these. Alright, so dexterity games aren't necessarily my forte. I actually am not that great at this game. Surprisingly, throwing cards and trying to get them to land where you want them on the table is a lot harder than it feels. I haven't really had that much experience in dexterity games. I only own about 2 in my entire collection, really. And I'm hoping to expand on that more, so if anyone's got any suggestions for some good ones, please comment below. Or, of course, if you're someone who wants something reviewed, I can probably look at that too. But at this time, wow, Maximum Throwdown. We're going to start with the base one here. The basic game is pretty good. It's very solid for what it is. You've got, a deck of cards based on a faction which have a few different facings that someone else might not have. You're going to play these cards and throw them down and try to get as many points as you can every round. That being said, we should probably go right into the breakdowns of the final thoughts, and we're going to do 2 of these. So for the base game of just the regular Maximum Throwdown that you can buy on any website or game store. Ooh, boy, gameplay. Ooh. It's about a 5, actually. It's not every social situation where you're going to pull this game out. If you got a few friends together, you get a few drinks, and you're looking to throw some cards at a table, this is the game. There's a lot of other dexterity games out there. Some of them have flicking, some of them have throwing, some of them have dice chucking. Whatever it is, you're going to be usually playing these, 1 or 2 handed with a group of friends around a big table, and, socializing. And that's what this game is for, socializing. It is not really a heavy gamer's game, and I would be surprised if many heavier games had dexterity mechanics in them. Mechanically speaking, it's not very diverse. A lot of the cards end up doing the similar things. You're going to try to be doing your best to cover up other people's symbols while keeping yours face up and, scoring as many points as you can. That's all there really is to the base game. Strategically, how you draw cards from other people, how you throw cards, and how you play them based on your abilities is all up to how you throw them. So, strictly speaking, the mechanics around that work relatively well. But again, it's not one of those games that's really going to grab you as a game that's got a lot of choices to it. The choices really are going to be, how do I throw this and what do I do? But that's all the things that you want in a good dexterity game. So if dexterity games are kind of your thing and you're into throwing cards, particularly cards that you're not going to sleeve because then they're way too slick to keep on a table or keep on top of each other, I could give this a 6. Again, it's not something I'm going to pull out very often. But when I do, it's going to be a fun time. And I've had a lot of people come around and say, yeah, this was a really fun game. Oh. Artwork. Kind of superfluous. The cards are pretty. It's all really high quality AEG artwork. I probably should have gotten into the artwork first, as that's usually my first thing I go to, because aesthetic pleasure is definitely one of the big things on my list. But it's such a crash of themes like Smash Up, but it does really well in its artwork. However, on the backside of cards, you've got this kind of stark contrast, and when you compare it to the other set, oh wow, it's kind of hard to tell them apart. Them's the breaks. They could have used a little bit more diversity in them so that way you could tell them apart, especially if you're forgetful of your color or something, or if you even had like a colored disc associated with that, it might help. I might add that with my box sometime just to help other players out, but who knows. There's always that reference card, which is probably the great granddaddy of how you determine whether you're keeping track of your own points or not, and that's probably what you're going to be playing with most of the time. Other than that, the symbols are very clear. They're very well thought out. They're a little confusing based on what they are sometimes, but you got that reference card. So other than that, the rulebook's fair. Everything about the artwork is just suitable. Again, I'm gonna give it a 6. It works. That's just the bits. Cards themselves, quality-wise, components and the box, decent card stock, well printed, heavy box, works well, and a bag of tokens which can't fit in the box if you put both of the sets in there. But for the base game, you don't have to worry about that at all. Everything fits in this little box for the base game. So good top quality components. Can't really give it a rating other than 8. Can't really get much better than this. And the insert was simple and basic, just like AEG needs for card games like this. Maybe having some sort of, slightly heavier card stock would be nice, just because I am really bad at throwing cards, gentlemen and ladies. Card throwing is not my forte. Oh, replayability. Oh, wow. For a single night, you might play this 3 or 4 times, but in the long run, you're not going to pull out this game every night. It's kind of a crapshoot here. I can't really say high end on this, but I can't really go low end either, because I've had nights where this we played about 2 games in a row. If you're quick at this, definitely you can get more replays, but if you're not quick at this and people are trying to think methodically and aim their shots and they're socializing, that's really going to hinder that kind of factor there. So hesitantly, if you're in a party situation, we're going to go 7 on replay value. Just because there's a lot of ways you can switch up these decks and try different pitches, and it's so easy to set up and take down that you're going to just play multiple games. However, for the casual, hardcore gamer who goes to maybe a game night, this is something you might throw down once every few weeks or months or years, ? Depending on your audience. And then hesitantly, I have to give that like a 4. Or even a 3, because throwing cards is not everyone's forte, and especially if you're playing with older gentlemen or older ladies who are not so inclined to be very dexterous. They are not going to enjoy this game at all. There's a lot of skill to this, so it's definitely what I would call a young person's game, and that's what it's good for. Get some beer, pretzels, and do a maximum throwdown. It's really fun. Final thoughts? 5. 5 is a good number for this game. Again, it's right in the middle between where it's a good game. I'm not going to play it all the time, but I'm not going to dismiss it and say no. If offered to play this, I'm more likely to play it than maybe a few others, because I do enjoy this. This is just based on the merits of the base game alone. Going into the expansion now, artwork, same number. Mechanics, though, have changed a bit since they have these different bases and these different powers that they added. If you mix the 2 sets up together, there's a little bit of an imbalance, but not really much that really matters. The new mechanics are fresh and they feel good, and they cause a whole lot of new commotions to happen. These tokens are great because they work and they can get slid around and get covered up just like everything else. Having the field explode when there's so many bombs out is such a tense moment. Being able to regenerate cards is so fun. But optimally, it's not game breaking, because I feel like somebody here did balance some of these things together, and the whole positive and negative pips mechanic is a great way to balance that. Definitely worth picking up. If you can find somebody who's throwing away their copy from the black box, definitely pick this up and add it to the base game for a whole lot of fun. Not to mention you can sit a whole nother 6 or 8 players with this. 6 players. For a total of 12 players. And if you have a huge table and you're just having a heck of a good time, that's quite a lot of game. I don't suggest going up to that mark, but it's something to try out, especially if you maybe need 8 players to play, which is a good, solid number for this game. Whew. So we're going to go for the mechanics in the second game, a little bit higher. This one I actually like a lot more than the base game, just because it has more variety, and the player powers are unique, and the ability to switch those bases up is really nice. That's going to give it a good 7. Replayability goes up slightly by 2 points there. Again, if you're in a party situation, 7 is a good number. If you're in a solo group thing, it goes to a 4, possibly a 5. Replayability still high as the other one. You know, plays that many. Oh, you gotta mix these two together. That's what it comes down to. This is a great game. It isn't too expensive these days. A lot of people either loved it or hated it. I'm definitely in the camp where I've got times where I like it and where I like it less than I would like to. So keep going with the AEG quality of cards and boxes. We're going to probably give you some other videos from them just because they're a good company and they're solid work. I can't really give them more praise than that. Other than that, thank you for coming to our little Cards and Cardboard review of Maximum Throwdown. Please like, subscribe, comment. If you do anything, please comment. We want to hear these. I know I beg every week for this, but it is so important to me that I hear comments because this is what it's all about. I'm trying to show my passion and I want to know that people are hearing it. So let me know what you think. Have a good week.